So when it comes to discussing the topic of Phase 4 and 5, it's a very, let's just say a very sensitive topic because it's one that a lot of people very much hate. There was a lot of things that was released, a lot of projects, sorry, that was released during this phase and also Phase 5 that a lot of people, I guess, got put off by the MCU and how much content was coming out. And there is a big reason for that and a huge reason to why I think Phase 4 and Phase 5 went massively downhill. And let's just talk about it. Now, I think one of the main reasons to why a lot of these projects in a lot of fans' eyes failed is due to how much content we were getting and how much was being given to us during the phases of 4 and 5. We were getting so much content, like a little bit too much. They sort of went out of their formula of releasing 2 movies a year because of the Disney Plus stuff. You know, they also obviously had to do the shows with Disney Plus, so that took away from their old formula and their old, tactic of bringing out 2 movies a year and focusing on more of quantity, or not quantity. That's what they started to focus on, but the old ways was quality over quantity, and then when these phases came out, it was more focusing on quantity over quality, and that was the issues with the likes of She-Hulk, the likes of Quantumania on here, the Marvels, etc. There are so many you could choose from that I just think failed, and personally the ones that I would say that failed in my opinion, I actually like a lot that was in MCU Phase 4 and 5, but I think the likes of Love and Thunder, Quantumania, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, it just completely brought the brand down, and it did kill the franchise for a little bit. It did put people off, it did give that superhero fatigue to a lot of people because of how much quantity of stuff we were getting. And also the quality of this stuff just wasn't great. When you look at Love and Thunder, Quantumania, the ones I just listed, they weren't great. You have the likes of Kang in Quantumania that was being built up as the next big villain, because at this point we had eyes destined on Kang Dynasty that was meant to release after Quantumania and was meant to be the big Avengers movie instead of Doomsday. And Kang had a lot of potential, and I think in Quantumania it completely ruined that momentum for him, brought him very much downhill, and it just ruined his character in general, which is a shame. And in the Marvels, I think the Marvels is an alright film. I think it's very fun. There's aspects to it which are fun, like Kamala Khan, but also it's not something every MCU fan wants to see, and I think it's targeted for a specific audience. And when you look at the MCU in general, that's not usually what they do. So it was a shame, but I thought Phase 5 produced a lot of good stuff. Thunderbolts was great, Brave New World was great, Deadpool & Wolverine was great, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was incredible. It gave us a lot of good stuff. Phase 4 gave us No Way Home, Moon Knight. I think there's a lot to love about both of these phases, so I'm not one of these people that saw a lot of hate when these phases are released, but I can understand from other fans' perspectives of why these phases failed, which is due to just the lack of good content, I guess, to a lot of MCU fans, and also how much content was being released. It's not good when you're releasing a lot of content and also that content isn't great. You're going to fatigue the fans out, you're going to tire the fans out, and it is going to put a lot of people off. And even Kevin Feige himself came out and said that, like, the structure of how Marvel Studios and Disney was working when Phase 4 and 5 was releasing just wasn't very connected. They weren't really focused on certain projects, and they lacked their focus basically in certain projects, like She-Hulk, and a lot of, like, Secret Invasion as well. Secret Invasion has so much potential, by the way. So much potential. Might have to make a separate video on that, because that's just incredible if you went off the comics. But let's get back on track. But, you know what I mean? Like, I think they just lost focus on a lot of projects releasing because there was so much of it in these phases that Kevin Feige just couldn't keep up with it all. And there was clearly no vision, which brings me on to my next point, which was there was no structure towards what the end goal was. At this point, the end goal was Kang Dynasty, and there was no build up to this. There was nothing leading up to it. There was no structure like we had in the Infinity Saga. They completely went off the rails when it comes to, like, their formula and how they did stuff in the Infinity Saga. Everything built up. Everything had a meaning to the bigger picture, which was Thanos with the Infinity Stones. It all had something, it all had a clear understanding of where the MCU was going in the Infinity Saga. And as soon as the Multiverse Saga came, that completely went off. It completely threw a spanner in the works, and they had no idea where they were going. The direction was completely off, and I know people say that Doctor Doom was always the plan, which it may have been. There was a lot of hints there, if you really dive deep into it. But I think Kang was always the idea. Kang was always the idea before Jonathan Majors, and I think there was no clear, like, end to what they were doing, because Secret Wars was always a plan, and I think they just wanted to get there, and they didn't really care how they got there. They just wanted to get there, and there was never a clear vision of how they wanted to get there, which was the big problem, because the Infinity Saga was so successful due to the fact that all these films connected. There was a built-up fan base that loved the brand and loved how it was built up, and the Multiverse Saga completely undid all of that and just ruined it, to a lot of people's vision. Like, in my opinion, I liked a lot of the projects, but I can agree that they were very disjointed and they weren't very connected. I like the project standalone, but like it really took them till the end of phase 5 to really think, this is where we're going, this is the direction we're taking, which is a shame, because if you followed that Infinity Saga formula, I think the Multiverse Saga wouldn't have been perceived by fans so poorly as it has been. But I think now they're back on track. It's good to see that we're getting back on track and we're really getting back to the old ways of the Infinity Saga, and after Secret Wars, I think they're definitely going to go back to that. I think with the introduction of Disney Plus, where Disney wanted to have all these Marvel shows coming out, like the likes of Echo, Daredevil, Ironheart, Secret Invasion, it really did put a spanner in the works, because they had to focus on so many shows which weren't connected to the larger universe, which weren't connected to building up to this end vision, which was Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, which is now Doomsday and Secret Wars. They never had an end goal, which was put off by the Disney Plus shows. And don't get me wrong, I think some of the Disney Plus shows are incredible, but I think we can all admit that they did put a spanner in the works. The only ones that really connect is Loki and WandaVision, I guess, are the only ones that you can really link. And Daredevil Born Again is incredible, but it doesn't really link to the bigger picture. It's more of a street level standalone, which I love, but it doesn't link to that. And when we had the Infinity Saga, we didn't have anything like that. We didn't have any shows like Disney Plus to build up to the Infinity War and Endgame. We didn't have any of that. So I think Disney Plus has a huge part to say in the lack of direction to the end of Multiverse Saga. Sorry. But I think we're getting there. We're getting back on track. I can't wait to see what we get post Secret Wars, because I think there's a lot to look forward to. And I think there's a lot to love about Phase 4 and 5. I think it gets so much undeserved hate, but I can understand from fans' perspective of why it feels so disjointed and why a lot of people just couldn't connect with it. I can fully understand that, but I'm glad to see where we're going, and MCU is back, and I cannot wait to see where we go.